Hello, and welcome to the Catching the Octopus podcast. Here, we will explore how connecting inward gives us an advantage outward. We openly talk about the obstacles and challenges and difficulties that life throws our way and how they become moments of gratitude and things that can benefit us when we look back on our lives. I'm your host, Naomi Hurley, and it is my mission to bring you top quality guests that will share with you openly their obstacles and also the techniques they use to go inward that strengthens the way that they serve themselves and others at the highest level. Thank you for joining. Let's get started. So welcome to this episode of Catching the Octopus podcast. Today I have Grant Gilmour with us. Now, born and raised in Bunbury, Western Australia, Grant Gilmour has always been a driven and ambitious individual. So he completed his early education at St. Mary's Primary School and then later attended Bunbury Catholic College, where he developed a strong foundation for his academic and personal growth. Growing up, Grant's love for sports was evident as he actively participated in football, tennis, and wakeboarding. And these activities not only fueled his competitive spirit, but also instilled in him a sense of discipline and teamwork that it would prove valuable in his future endeavours. Now, in 2016, Grant embarked on a new journey and founded his own plumbing and gas business. Now, with his dedication, expertise, and unwavering commitment to excellence, the business has flourished under his leadership. And what began as a one-person operation has now evolved into a thriving team of 8 professionals, and the company continues to expand rapidly. In 2022, Grant celebrated a joyous milestone in his personal life as he tied the knot with his beautiful wife, Chloe, and together they are blessed with 2 beautiful daughters, Olivia and Hayley, who bring immeasurable joy and fulfillment to their lives. So Grant's entrepreneurial spirit, combined with his strong family values, has shaped him into a well-rounded individual, and he remains actively involved in his community, supporting local initiatives and giving back where possible. And with his solid foundation, business acumen, and commitment to continuous growth, Grant Gilmour is poised for even greater success in the future, both personally and professionally. So welcome, Grant, to Catching the Octopus.
Hey, how you going?
Yeah, great. And it's so good to have you here. Thank you very much for jumping on.
Yeah, no worries. No, it's good. When the opportunity came up, it was pretty hard to pass. So it's good to get around and be involved.
Yeah, so Grant and we actually met at a referral group. So I don't know if it was the pleasure or the pain of seeing each other every week for breakfast over with a group of businesses in Bunbury for about a year. And we struck up quite a close relationship, I think, because of the common values that we both have. You know, we're both, very professional, but both personable as well. And I think I've done some work with Grant's business, and his team are amazing too. And I think that's a bit of a key, isn't it, Grant? Surrounding yourself with some good people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of the things to navigate through business and just in life is surrounding yourself with good people and working with people. It's such a major thing in business. If you can trust your team to go out and do work, because for us, we're not there in front of them to steer the ship. So they're out there doing it and presenting our business for us, and they're all a really good bunch of guys and girls, and they all get along really well. So surrounding yourself with good people amongst your team is just so valuable.
And it's one of the common things we speak about in most of the podcasts is that connection and that attracting of good people. But I'm a believer that part of attracting good people is actually having those great leadership skills as well. So how do you set up in your business that ability to connect with your employees and give them what they need, both on a professional aspect, but also that personal aspect?
Yeah, well, I think it really just starts with educating the team. If someone does something wrong, you've got to teach them why or how. And sometimes it's not just necessarily that they've just done something wrong. It's just they've just done something their own way or just done something a different way. So I've always said to myself and the staff that, whether you're a first year or whether you've been doing it for 30 years, to listen to what everyone has to say, because sometimes it can just help you figure out a better way to do something, especially as a team as well. I find that to be a major thing, not just going off and flying off the handle with staff. If, like I say, if something does go wrong, people are human and accidents happen. So I think I've sort of over the years sort of tried to slowly get rid of that side of me, like a little bit. If I get a bit angry at someone, it's like, okay, well then why did this happen? You know, it's something that I can do. So that's where I think education is probably a big thing.
Yeah. And I know we've had some conversations about stuff that's going on in my business and my life as well. And you have this really beautiful way. I mean, it's high emotional intelligence, but you have this real beautiful way of seeing past the noise and actually seeing those root causes, right? To not get affected by the noise that's going on around.
Yeah. I mean, there's no point in making a difficult conversation or a difficult situation harder. And I just think that if you can sort of do that, if you can sit down with the person and go, what's going on, there might be something that's happening at home or something else that's going on in the background that maybe, like I say, something else is going on, and it just becomes easy to sit down with them behind closed doors and say, hey, look, can I help? Is there something we can do? Is there a way that we can help? And just being a little like on the front foot of that instead of just building up, start growing, it can get quite messy. So trying to be on the front foot of trying to find out what the problem is, where it came from, eliminating it, and never having to get back to it again.
Yeah. So talking problems, great segue into a question I've got for you here. What causes some of the most common problems within work and business, in your opinion?
In my opinion, the one that comes up the most is probably just communication. It seems to be in personal life and in business. When people don't know things, if they don't ring and ask, that just creates a problem in itself. And that can just literally just relate to almost anything. Same with things at home. If you and your partner don't communicate about what your expectations are, and you don't discuss goals or discuss life in general about where you both want to go, whether you both want to, do something. If you don't talk about it, then it can just create a problem. So I think communication is probably one of the biggest ones that comes to mind first. And then that can just goes off anywhere. You could literally talk about that for a while. I think it's just a major factor, business and personal life.
I find with leadership, one of the things that hold people back in that communication space is that lack of taking the step to have it, right? We sit there and you talk about it in your head, and I need to talk to this person, I need to address this, but not everyone takes the steps. I know that you are actually pretty much on the front of that, and I know that you openly communicate with your staff. How or what do you do? Like what process do you go through before you have a chat with them to make sure that your emotional intelligence is high and it's not, a personal thing, and it's spoken about in the right way?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really difficult one, because it can just depend on what the situation is or what the problem is. I know for us in business, like we have a toolbox meeting once every 2 weeks, and the guys actually break out into teams of 2, and they sit there with each other and they work out some problems or ways that the business can actually work better. And I find that, there are always 3 or 4 things that get written down. Instead, if it's in a large group, everyone sort of holds back. Like if you ask a question to a large group of people, no one really sticks their hand up. And even if they know the answer, they don't put their hand up. I find that just the breakout session of like in 2s, people seem to come back with 4 or 5 ideas, and it's just easier once the juices get flowing. Once 2 people start talking, they can probably find that their problems are very similar in the business, and they want to improve on both of them, or they think that the same thing can actually be improved. So that's probably one thing that we do that's really helped, and I only learned that from our business, from my business coach. So and it's worked out really well, and we do it every 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I do love that, because there's almost public speaking is almost just as scary as jumping off a cliff for some people, right? So when they're in that space, it takes out the fear so that they can more openly communicate. Yeah,
exactly. And I think as well, there's always sometimes when like an employee wants to come and approach a boss, and they have that sort of fear about, how do I approach this just themselves? I want a pay rise, or I need help with this. when everyone else does it so easily.
Mm.
There's that little bit of fear, and it's about us, or especially me being the boss, is trying to see that while it's being a problem, and then I can hopefully approach them. And that's where I said before, like, it's purely circumstantial. Like, I wouldn't approach them with that in a full group because it can be embarrassing, but you just go out and teach them, or you go out and just, when they're doing something in the yard by themselves, is you just approach them and start the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to reading people well, which I believe you do, and also setting up that psychologically safe space, right? That's kind of thing that I'm passionate about. But that's one of the things I see in your workplace. There's, that element of banter, which creates the work relationships, but it doesn't cross the line, right? It doesn't go too far. There's that still that element of professionalism. So you guys know when to have a good time, know when to get down and work, and know when you can speak up. And I think that's just a really great holistic way of approaching business and your team.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to your question before, was about surrounding yourself with good people. Everyone has got to get along at work, and if they don't, then problems come out of like nowhere. Something good that we started doing was the old saying was doing a piss up every 6 months, but now it's just a team get together and we just go do things together, and the team can just talk together. And they all get to know each other really well. And so things for the day-to-days become really easy, and they just talk and communicate together. So, I think that just goes back to having a good team around you. It really makes life easier. Really does.
Just side question, not really relevant, but I'm interested. Is there anything that you've done that's like a little bit weird is a team catch up? Because I know you've got a real quirky side, right? So I'm just wondering what sort of things do you guys get up to in your 6-month catch up?
There's been nothing yet. Some of the best ones we've had are actually going to Golf X, which has just opened up in Bunbury. Like that was actually really good. We've got a few more of those booked in. It's all just trying new things, and it's actually a little bit difficult to try and take away that element of like going out and having a drink, and actually going and doing something. That's actually quite difficult to do with I think there's 9 of us now, so that's quite hard to do. So I think we're going to Cup Rum. I think that's one of the next places that we're going to go to. So there's obviously drinking involved in that, but it's also not surrounded by it. It's like how to make something and do something that no one in the team has actually done before. So nothing too strange yet. I'm just trying to think. Last year, I think we did a rally driving course. That was different.
Cool. Yeah.
yeah. That was a 3.5-hour drive up there, but that was something different. We all got to jump in a Subaru WRX rally car, and a professional took us around a track once, and then we got to learn how to do it. So that was quite exciting. But like I say, it's just something different, like it doesn't really matter what it is. It's something different for everyone to do than to just sit at a pub and drink, it just gets everyone out of their shell as well.
And then you've always got, doesn't matter how good your team is, you've always got that one person that drinks and wants to bring up all the problems, and and you're like, no, this is an out of work thing. I don't have my leader hat on right now. I'm just one of the crew.
Yeah. This is your problem. Leave it at home. Yeah, no.
Exactly. No.
I think that always happens. You mix alcohol with people, boys and girls all together. Like there's always going to be something that happens, and it always gets brought up. When people are out drinking, but like I say, trying to eliminate that's difficult. But I've seen it happen before. It's not nice, but that's life, I suppose, isn't it?
And you can almost see it in their eye, right? When you're walking across the road. I've been to enough work dues, and being HR and safety, I've been on the end of it, right? So, you see it in their eye and you're like, oh my God, they're going to get me. So you kind of, hey, I'll be there in a minute. And you just sort of mingle, try not to let yourself get on loan with them. And, there's tactics, right? There's tactics.
yeah. I'm going to go get myself another drink and then just don't walk back.
Those sort of things.
That one? Should have said that. Now I can't use it.
No. Now, especially if your team listen. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, it is great to get people to loosen up, and I like your approach of, sometimes there will be alcohol, but I think we've changed. The world of work's changed, and the world of lifestyle has changed, and doing things that isn't reliant on that alcohol space, I think, is really great, because people can just be themselves. And you don't have that embarrassment. You know, in my early years, I was like quite a big drinker, and the amount of times I'd wake up in the morning and go, oh, I have to face these people tomorrow, right? It was all good
Yeah.
fun at the time, not so good fun the
Yeah.
next day. So it gives people a space to be able to be comfortable with each other and not have regrets, I think is a bonus.
Yeah, yeah. I know, like we're going to like sort of move through like the team and sort of try and get some of the guys to pick what we do next. And it'd be good because the guys and also the team, they'll basically probably pick things that they're good at. And so you see people with a whole new skill set. And
Mm.
essentially that's how you get to know people, isn't it? Like, how did you become so good at golf? Or how did you become so good at, whatever it might be? And you're like, oh, holy shit, this person's got another skill set that we didn't even know about. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and yeah, it just means that they actually become a leader and teach other people how to do it as well. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, like I say, trying different things, especially with the teams, like what really good fun as well.
So as well as obviously building your team and getting that communication, what would be from you kind of your top tips of things that would help your business grow for any other small businesses out there?
Yeah, look, I think it really took off for us when we started doing business coaching. We started that probably just under 12 months ago with Upscale.
Mhm.
Shout out to that team. It was really like, it was quite funny because like the team weren't like, they're not in the trades, like they're not sparkies and plumbers, they're like business coaches, and we don't discuss plumbing or anything like that. We discuss business. So the top tip
Mm.
would really be the thing that really started to help us build, and that was just systemizing everything that we do.
Mhm.
And it seemed like such, I don't want to say the words waste of time, but it seemed just like something that seemed just so pointless. And then all of a sudden we systemized some basic jobs that we would do for day-to-day stuff. And all of a sudden the phone wouldn't ring as much from the team.
Mm.
And all of a sudden as well, when we got to that, we leapt to that stage of putting on an admin, everything was there. So it was like she could read what was happening on the system that we use, and you could
Mm.
understand what the guys were doing. So systemizing what we're doing and automating everything, so everyone knows what to do and the information is there and they know where to get it. Basically just freed me up with a heap more time.
Mm.
And essentially obviously, as you would know me, when you're starting a business, when you start to get busy, you obviously you start running the business, not actually doing the work. And I find that
Mm.
the more time I had to help the guys make their team life easier, the better it was, and the easier it was for me as well.
Mm. Mm.
And so, like I think systemizing would definitely be up there, if not number one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that because that's done so many things. Yes, it systemizes, and yes, it takes the pressure off you, and it gives you that space to work on the business and to get this coaching and to be more strategic. But how it's so empowering as well, because people know
Yeah,
where to go for the answers, right? They don't have to always
yeah.
be harassing you and knocking on your door, and they can shine a lot easier when they've got those resources.
Yeah, exactly. And when they know where to find them, how to do it, and actually having an input into those systems as well. Like there's always, the way that I like to do things, and how it always really works well for me. But, when someone else says, hey, Grant, that's a really good idea, but this is the way that I do it, we can then
Mm.
implement that and go, okay, this actually works better. It's faster, it's more cost effective, and we get a better result for our customers. That also, there's that aspect into it as well, because people have all learnt their own different ways. So systemizing is an ongoing thing. It's not like you just do it once and then you've got one system for one thing. It's like something that needs to be reviewed, monthly or quarterly.
Mm.
But it definitely is a game changer, I feel.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely systemizing would be right up there.
And I think that links back in again with that workplace psychological safety and those
Yeah,
psychologically safe workplaces, because one of the key elements I know in roles I've been in where I haven't felt psychologically safe is when there was no role clarity, right? I didn't know what was
yeah,
expected of me. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing or if I was achieving what people wanted me to, or I would think I was achieving and someone would come out and start calling me out for something I didn't even know I had to do. But with systems and processes, it's all pretty much laid out, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think like people don't like rocking up to work and not knowing where they've got to go, what they've got to do. And if they've got to organise something, usually like everyone's happy to do it. They just got to
Yeah.
know that they have to do it. And if
Yeah.
they don't know that, then there's a level of confusion, and people just get frustrated with that. They get really. That's what I've seen before. They just get really frustrated. They don't want to know what to do, and then they just don't really want to work hard and get stuff done.
Mm.
Because it just makes their life more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what would you say, Grant, as we all have things that trip us up, what would you say would be the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome, either in business or life? And how did that strengthen your connection with yourself?
Good question. I think the biggest obstacle was trying to figure out a really good work-life balance.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people say it, and it is really true that you can work 12, 14-hour days and just get nowhere, and you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you're getting nowhere as well, and then you feel like you're not making any extra money for the hours that you're putting in.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a bit of a downward spiral. And so I think it's really important to have that work-life balance and setting aside time that, like, yes, at 4 o'clock today, I'm going to be going home,
Yeah.
and giving yourself appointments so you can't miss that
Mm.
is really important as well. And putting it in your schedules every day, every week, whatever it might be. There is always going to be the days you have to work late, but I think with a good work-life balance, you can still mix the two,
Mm. Mm.
but I think being home at 4 and saying, yes, I'm going to be home at 4, or like once or twice a week, I pick Olivia up from daycare, and that's literally right on 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And making sure that I stick to that,
Mm.
and making sure that the team know that I stick to that.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, having a good work-life balance, I think, was the biggest hurdle, because it was like a full scheduling change for me. It was a routine change. It was, I used to always do the 6 to 6, 6 to 7. That was my daily routine. That's just what I did. And then being home at like 4 just
Mm.
seems so strange, because I was like, now what do I do? And you're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll play with the kids.
Yeah.
We'll go and do something now. We've got time.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest part of like realization, is when you actually stick to those times and do them. You get to spend time with your friends and family, and you're not just this person that just goes to work for the whole day. You actually can do stuff outside, which means you can work on yourself and spend time with family and friends.
If you're enjoying this podcast and you want Naomi or any of her guests featured on your podcast or as a keynote speaker at your next event, you'll find their contact details included in the show notes. If you'd like to learn more about how you can work with Naomi individually or as part of your strategy to improve leadership in your business, then review the courses, offers and services at getupandgrowconsulting.com.au.
And I love this, because that also models for the employees in your team, right? As well.
Yeah.
So again, I think I'm going to title this one Workplace Psychological Safety, because I love how everything's just going in there.
Yeah.
Right? Because, when we push ourselves too hard, we think that these 12-hour days is what we need to do, but there's optimum levels of performance as well, right? And when we push past that and we're pushing into burnout, we could be there 100 hours and we're still not going to achieve anything, because we're just not at that level of performance. So showing your team that it's important to still have that balance, I think, is really important for them as they come in through as their own, as leaders within their mini teams and things, to have those boundaries as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think you could be more right. I think that, like I say, the work-life balance thing and teaching that with your team, trying to say to them, hey, look, like if it does get to like 4:30, 5 o'clock, it's dark. We can always reschedule it first thing in the morning the next day. There's no real benefit for anyone in working on the tools or anything after 5:30, 6 o'clock. Sometimes there's an emergency and things do happen. And sometimes there's just nothing you can really do about that. But yeah, like saying to the team, look, our work hours are from 7 till 4. And just saying to them, like, if you want things after work or even earlier than that, let us know and we can put it in our schedule, so we don't book you out and then you feel like you're obligated to do these jobs. Like, let us know. And that just goes back to communication as well. So I think trying to teach the team that, and who doesn't want to go home early after all their jobs are done, right? Once everything's organised, it's such a good thing to know that you're ahead of schedule, you're doing the right things, everything's going smoothly, and hey, look, it's 2:00, no worries, everything's organised for tomorrow. Go home.
Yeah. And I was listening to a podcast from Michelle Obama actually the other day, and she was talking about this work-life balance, and you touched on it in there. And she was like, she used to just schedule time out in her calendar, and people didn't need to know what it was. This is when she was first lady, and she was just like, no, I've got an appointment at that time, and people are like, okay, let's move it to here. And people don't question. They're just, you've got an appointment, right? But it's internally that we feel a little bit guilty until we become familiar with it. We're like, that was only just doing something for me. I should cancel it for the business. But that's not how it should be. That's just our own guilt. That
comes 100%. Yeah. It's just about putting the time away. And once again, it's something that we learn in business coaching is you schedule out a time every day of the week, weekly planning, and on Thursday, you're going to be doing this. And that doesn't change. But also leaving time at the rest of the week that if things do need to change, because you got to be open to that, you still have time, and all of a sudden you don't have these big built up hours and days. So it's just creating enough time in your schedule to stick to it, but also to be flexible. And like I say, try not to get that burnout feeling of, working 60 hours a week and being hammered. So, and people don't question that either. If you say you've got an appointment, people go, what is it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not really up to them to judge whether it's worth going to or not.
Is this relevant? Should you be here or should
Yeah. Do you need to go to the doctor's appointment? I don't think so, but So it's like people don't ask. They just go, oh, okay, cool. What's next? And most people are pretty good these days.
Yeah. So I have a couple of other questions that I standard ask. My next one is, what is a key challenge that you've had in your life that you're now grateful for, and how did that become beneficial to you? So in my opinion, I believe that even the biggest obstacles that we go through, or the biggest challenges that we face in life, may seem really overwhelming at the time. But in retrospect, when we look back, there's at least one gold nugget, or there's a gift we haven't unwrapped yet, that comes from that. So have you got an example you might be able to give us of a challenge in your life that you're probably overwhelmed with at the time, but are now grateful for?
Yeah, I think for me, probably going back, I think maybe, 8-9 years, a challenge that really taught me a fair bit was probably building my first house. I think I was about 21, I think I was. And I got also, being young and dumb, I got a loan out for a nice fancy Land Cruiser. And it was really good. And I was like, cool, I've got a house and I'm living by myself, and then I've had a roommate move in, and then I've got this nice car, and thinking everything's awesome. And then I was sort of lucky because I've got a pretty smart sister who's an accountant, and she was like, Grant, you're paying X amount percentage interest. And I just had no idea what interest was. Absolutely none. And so for me, money back then was just I just didn't have it. I didn't know what it meant to have repayments and interest and all these little basic things that you don't learn in school.
Yeah.
And it just forced me to suck it up and pay for it, or sell it and move on to something else. So that challenge for me was it was awesome having a house and a nice car. The best thing was having the house and independence.
Yes.
Right? But when reality sets in, and that was about the time I first started going out on my own and doing little subby jobs, and then doing little jobs for myself as a licensed plumber was probably about a year or two later. That's when it really sank in that this is a really serious responsibility, and looking at things like interest rates, and looking at things like what repayments are, and how they actually affect your day-to-day life was really just a big eye-opener, which now is great because it's just a part of my day-to-day thing, and I don't know everything about it, and I'm still learning a lot because it's always changing. But I feel like learning about that money side of things and the responsibility that comes with it has helped me manage, especially now that we've grown significantly. That's definitely helped me manage finances as we grow, because as you know, when we put one new plumber on, it's a new $40,000 vehicle. We've usually got to pay wages for 3 to 4 weeks before we see a return on that. So that all adds up pretty quick. And I think if I still had those poor money management skills, like now, we just wouldn't be around, because you just wouldn't have the money you wouldn't have the capital there, the working capital to keep that going. So I think that was a real valuable lesson. And I was, like I say, lucky I just had good people around me to go, hey mate, like, this is just stupid. Why do you have this like this? And then afterwards, like now, I'm just like, yeah, what an idiot. But you don't know what you don't know, right?
Well, I remember I wanted a computer for when I turned 18. Just that's what I wanted, right? And back in those days, let's be honest, you couldn't do much other than play solitaire, right? But I wanted one, right? And so I went out and I said to my dad, I want a computer, and I was trying to get one, and he's like, no, you shouldn't do it. So I went to the bank and I went and got a loan. My first ever loan was for a computer. And, I think I paid more for it back in, I don't even know what it was, 1995 maybe, than what I paid for my laptop now, right, in today.
Yeah,
so
wow.
Just a stupid investment. But when we're young, we don't really think about it. And I think you're right. It's getting to that place where we've got a different view on money. And I think even for myself, I thought I wasn't too bad with money. And I was earning quite a bit in the corporate space, but moving into the business aspect, that's a totally different game, right? And I remember Mario Giacchi, the owner of Giacchi Brothers and MGM, when I was leaving and I told them I was going to start my business, he said, he goes, oh, good luck. And I went, oh, Mario, I'm going to nail this. Like, you know me, like, I'm really clever. And he goes, no, come to me when you really understand what it's like to be a business owner. And, the first time, when I had invoices coming in and I was waiting for invoices to come through for me to pay them and stuff, I sat there, I went, Mario, right? Just come into my head. But it's a different space, right? People don't usually get it.
Yeah. And it's just the understanding. I mean, you can try and teach and tell people and educate them and sit there down there for hours and go, like, this is what cash flow is. This is what working capital is. This is why you need to have X amount saved up in the bank, because one day it's not going to be there. You've got to pay wages first. You've got to pay suppliers first. And then you've got to follow up on your own invoices, from 30 days, 40 days. You've got to do all these. You've got to wear all the hats, right? We've all heard that before. You've got to wear all the hats to make it work. And you just get no education in it besides actually doing it or paying a business coach. And you don't realize you could have a business coach until you've actually done it for like a year or two, and you're like, shit, I'm actually not going anywhere. So like I say, it goes, you don't know what you don't know. And like I say, educating yourself in business is a big thing. And like I said to you, I was lucky to have people around me that just knew these things, that it just was what they were taught at. So I was just lucky to have that early realization that, just because you have $10,000 in the bank as something doesn't mean you can go and use it, buy a new couch or help it for a car, or you can't just go and spend it.
Yeah.
You've got tax bills to pay. You've got things to pay. So, like I said, that was a real challenge for me at the start, a really big challenge for probably a good 3 or 4 years. But yeah, everything's going pretty well now.
Yeah. And look, I know we've had quite a few conversations around that financial aspect as well. So I know you definitely got your head screwed on with that now, but that's part of the journey of leadership in life, isn't it? We do things and we might stumble, scrape our knee, and it's about getting up and going, oh, I didn't like that scrape. I don't want to do that again. Right. And changing and evolving and learning as we go.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you don't learn as you go, like, you are just going to stay in the same spot at the same size, still doing the same thing that could potentially be the reason why you're not growing in the first place. And that's where, talking to people like business coaches or just other people in business like yourself, we talk about these sorts of things. And there's often times where we've been talking, we go, hey, Naomi, why don't you do this? You're like, hey, Grant, why don't you just do this? And it just seems like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. Why don't I do that? So, but to someone else, it just seems so obvious, but to you, it can just be like, just stupid. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things that you've got to learn, and you just evolve as you go through.
Yeah. So, well, my last question, what I would like to ask is, I believe that how we show up outward is due to what we're doing for that inward self, right? For what we're doing for ourselves in that space. So do you have any daily, weekly, monthly ad hoc practices that you do that sort of strengthens that connection with self?
Yeah, I think I always do like spending time with family.
Yeah.
My two daughters and Chloe. I also like to sort of, be there for friends and family. I've learnt a lot from them in the past. So I think just, spending time with them
Yeah.
where you can. Poking a bit of shit at your family is always a good idea when you're around them and you're giving each other a good hard time. It always, a bit humbling and a bit, brings you back down to earth. So it's a lot of good fun. But yeah, I think for me, it's spending time with friends and family. And yeah, making a really good effort to go to those, birthdays and just small events and things like that. Making that quite a high priority to at least get to and catch up with people, having people over, entertaining is like a really good thing that we like to do. So yeah, I think just doing the things outside of business life, and making sure that you do have something for yourself. I usually go and play like a bit of like golf, just either by myself with a friend, usually once every 2 to 3 weeks, or just bits and pieces like that you need to just reset and just have spend a bit of time with yourself. I think is really important as well.
Yeah, and I think from an outsider looking in as well, I think you're super professional when you're in the business and you're great at building those relationships. But I think when you're able to step away from that, you kind of don't really take yourself that seriously either. And I think that's key, right? Because that just it allows you to bring out that inner child and that fun, and just enjoy your life, right?
Yeah, you can't take yourself too seriously. You've got to have fun with people, and even like here at work, I like to have a good joke around with the boys and keep it fun. There's always that time to be serious, but at the same time, it's you got to have fun, and we just got to try and get along with as many people as you can, and surround yourself with good people. So. Definitely trying to be a little bit lighthearted and not get too serious is always a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it helps you build those stronger relationships too, right? Because I know you've caught me off guard a couple of times and said stuff that's a bit cheeky. I'm like, oh, what? But it helps create better rapport as well, stronger rapport and stronger relationships.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like some of the catch ups we've had are just like we just talk about anything and we ramble on for hours, but it's always good. Like it's always a good catch up because it's it's always a good one-to-one that we used to have at like BNI and like it's always been good. So like I say, I can't really relate to people that are just so serious all the time. I don't know what it is. I just can't, because sometimes I'm just like this doesn't really relate to me too much. But I think that's just me.
And, I'm really proud of ourselves. So just for the listeners, before we jumped on, I did say to Grant, I got back-to-backs today. We've only got an hour to do this. And for us, that is a huge challenge. And I think we've done it. We've kept within the hour. We've done so well.
Wow.
Pat on the back for us. But Grant's right. We usually get together and just rattle. But I suppose that's a really good thing as well, for showcasing that support network, right? And again, going back to relationships. And I think, maybe the theme today was around that psychological safety and relationships and how they go really quite closely hand in hand. So it's been awesome chatting with you today and keeping to a time limit as well. Us mature business owners. So if anyone did want to reach out to you, Grant, pick your brain, have a chat with you, all of those, or if they need any plumbing needs as well around the Southwest corporate, in that industrial space or in the residential space, how would they reach out to you?
So simply just Google Gilmour Plumbing and Gas Bunbury, or just Google Bunbury Plumbing. We are right up there in the Google searches. There is our website, Gilmour Plumbing, and I think it's just gilmourplumbing.com.au. And we're located on 62 Strickland Street, so we have an awesome admin that you can just walk in and say good day to and book a time. But just through those avenues is usually the best way.
Yeah. And if you are looking for someone to come into your business in that corporate space and industrial or personal, I've not only worked with Grant as part of my business coming into his team, but I've had his team come and do work with me as well. And they're a great bunch. They're so professional, so thorough, polite, considerate, and all those things that you hope from a tradie that you don't always get. So you've done well there, Grant. Yeah, nice work.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Yeah, it's good having you around. I mean, you've helped us out a few times with sticky situations with, there could be like what was it, last year we had like supervisors and things like that.
Yeah.
It's just like you have two people that just don't get along, and we all need to learn how to manage and still stay respectful, but try and move towards that end goal of finishing the job. And when you have these roadblocks in place, it's really good just to have you around, or know that you're just a phone call away, Naomi, just to be able to go, hey, what do we do here? Or the team to go, what do we do here? And we don't know what we're doing with that regard. So it's just good to have someone that does.
Yeah. Well, like all good business owners and leaders, sometimes we're just winging it, right?
Yeah, right. Maybe you can name it that, just winging it.
Just winging it. No, thank you. I appreciate that. And I enjoy our chats, and I'm really grateful that we've been able to connect. And thank you again for coming on and supporting me on the podcast, Grant. Really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining in and listening to this episode of Catching the Octopus podcast. It's been great having you here. And if you'd like to go and like and subscribe, and maybe even leave a 5-star rating if you think it's worth it, I'd really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.